Namaste. My name is Janapati Das. Welcome again to the Bhagavad Gita as it is class. Please accept my respects, everyone. Please take the opportunity, if you haven't already, to subscribe to this channel, or encourage your friends to do so, and to like and comment on the videos. I welcome questions, thoughts, insights that you might have from hearing these classes. I really appreciate it. I do it as my service to my spiritual master, who I'd like to offer my most humble obeisances to, Jagat Guru Siddhaswarapananda Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada, and to my spiritual grandfather, who purported and translated the Bhagavad Gita as it is, that we are that we are commenting on. So I offer my obeisances to him and hope that I'm pleasing to my spiritual master and my spiritual grandfather in doing these classes. So we will start off with the hearing and chanting. All glories to the congregational singing and chanting of Krishna's holy names, which cleanse the heart of all the dust accumulated for years together. This congregational chanting and singing of Krishna's names is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. So please, let's chant together, and let's start our class off. Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gaura Karuna Swarupaya Hare Haribo. Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gora Karuna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prasthayate. I was born in the darkness, ignorance of my spiritual master. Open my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So, continuing, chapter 15, Yoga of the Supreme Person. We have been reading through some of these really amazing verses. We've been Krishna explaining by the multifarious energies how he enters into the material world, the spiritual world, and all present everywhere in both the material and spiritual planets. Text 15. Sarvasha chaham hilidi sani vishto mataha smritir gananam apohanam cha vedaish cha sarvar aham evad vejo vedanta krid vedavid evad chaham. Sarvasha, of all living beings, cha, and aham, I, hridi, in the heart, sani vishtaha, being situated, mataha, from me, smriti, remembrance, gananam, knowledge, apoham cha, and forgetfulness, vidyahi, by the Vedas, cha, also, sarvai, all, aham, I am, eva, certainly, vejaha, knowable, Vedanta Krit, the compiler of the Vedanta, Vedavit, the knower of the Vedas, eva, certainly, cha, and aham, I. Translation, text 15. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. And by the Vedas am I to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedanta and the knower of the Vedas. So, really amazing points. One is that Krishna is expanded into all the atoms and all the Lord in the heart, Paramatma, right? Expands in the heart, and by this expansion of the Paramatma, the living entity is guided spiritually, or allowed to, it's basically here stated here, remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So depending on what the living entity wants, Krishna supplies. Either, there's a saying in the Quran that I remember, that where Allah puts a stone over the heart, that's sort of the forgetfulness comes from, because the living entity doesn't want to remember Krishna. But if we need the knowledge, either we can receive knowledge from, we want material knowledge how to make money or whatever, Krishna provides us with that. Or if we want knowledge to get out of the material world, Krishna provides that. If we want to remember Krishna, Krishna lifts that stone away. So, and also here, the Vedas, here, Krishna is the knower of the Vedas, the creator of the Vedas. He is non-different than the Vedas. And yet, the Vedanta society, there are people who use the Vedas and personalists to try to basically state that they are the undifferentiated oneness. They are God. And Krishna provides them with that, the forgetfulness of them. But it is kind of interesting, because by the Vedas, one can come to know Krishna. And that's what the Veda's purpose is to help people come to know Krishna. So, to come to the Brahman effulgence is the lowest God realization. So, that is, it's not like it's not true. You can come to know the the Brahman effulgence. You can merge into the Brahman effulgence, but this is not the highest understanding of God. Purport: the Supreme Lord is situated as Paramatma in everyone's heart, and it is from him that all activities are initiated. The living entity forgets everything of his past life. So we go through the birthing situation, we forget where we were before, We just move on, and this is why Krishna tells Arjuna, many births have you and I both had. I remember them, but you don't remember them. This is because the living entity is conditioned so that when they go from life to life, they forget their previous life. I mean, with the very rare exception, sometimes people may remember a lot past life when we have stories of that. Narada Muni, King Bharat, but that's a different perspective, right? By Krishna's mercy, he was able to remember, so those people were able to remember their past lives, what they did wrong, and what they wanted to achieve in this life. But he has to act according to the direction of the Supreme Lord, who is witness to all his work. Therefore, he begins his work according to his past deeds. Required knowledge is supplied to him, and remembrance is given to him, and he forgets also about his past life. Thus, the Lord is not only all-pervading, he is also localized in every individual heart. He awards the different fruitive results. He is not only worshipable as the impersonal Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the localized Paramatma, but as the form of the incarnation of the Vedas as well. So, Krishna is also the Vedas. And there is actually a wonderful story in the Krishna book, very end, second to last, the prayers by the personified Vedas. I recommend people read that story, or you can go to my channel. I have the classes on that Krishna book, and I did read through that very long 70-page chapter of the prayers by the personified Vedas. But that's a very awesome definition of what the Vedas are there for, and the difference between personalism and impersonalism. He awards the different fruit of results. He is not only worshipable as the impersonal Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the localized Paramama, but as the form of the incarnation of the Vedas as well. The Vedas give the right direction to the people so that they can properly mold their lives and come back to Godhead, back to home. The Vedas offer knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and Krishna in his incarnation as Vyasadeva is the compiler of the Vedanta Sutra. The commentation of the Vedanta Sutra by Vyasadeva in the Srimad Bhagavatam gives the real understanding of the Vedanta Sutra. So that's a very interesting thing because, impersonalists, monists, cite Vyasadeva in the Vedanta Sutra. They studied the Vedanta Sutras, but they pretty much neglect the Srimad Bhagavatam because of the conclusion that the Srimad Bhagavatam is a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Instead, they, under the guidance of the lineage of Shankaracharya, they come up with their own interpretation of what that means. And actually, there's a wonderful part in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Pastimes of the Lord Chaitanya, where Lord Chaitanya is invited by an impersonalist Brahmana who has a conversation about this very same topic. And Lord Chaitanya very clearly explains it to them and basically was able to convert all of them into his students and disciples. And these were like great scholars in the Vedanta thinking. So it wasn't like they were just really stupid or anything like that. They just fortunately had enough mode of goodness to be basically in spiritual vision to see Lord Chaitanya for who he was. The Supreme Lord is so full that for the deliverance of the conditioned soul, He is a supplier and digester of foodstuff, the witness of his activity, the giver of knowledge in the form of the Vedas, and as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, the teacher of the Bhagavad Gita. He is worshipable by the conditioned soul. Thus God is all good, God is all merciful. Ananta pravajishta shasta jananam. The living entity forgets as soon as he quits his present body, but he begins his work again, initiated by the Supreme Lord. Although he forgets, the Lord gives him the intelligence to renew his work where he ended his last life. So not only does a living entity enjoy or suffer in this world according to the dictation of the Supreme Lord situated locally in the heart, but he receives the opportunity to understand Vedas from him. If one is serious to understand the Vedic knowledge, then Krishna gives the required intelligence. Why does he present the Vedic knowledge for understanding? Because a living entity individually needs to understand Krishna. Vedic literature confirms this. Yoshal Savar Vedar Giyate. In all Vedic literature, beginning from the four Vedas, Vedanta Sutra, and the Upanishads and Puranas, the glories of the Supreme Lord are celebrated. By performing Vedic rituals, discussing the Vedic philosophy, and worshiping the Lord in devotional service, he is attained. Therefore, the purpose of the Vedas is to understand Krishna. Or say that again. Therefore, the purpose of the Vedas is to understand Krishna. The Vedas give us direction to understand Krishna and the process of understanding. The ultimate goal is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the goal of life, actually. People have so many paths of like, what am I going to do from, what's the meaning of my life going to be? Well, the meaning of everyone's life is Krishna, to come back to Krishna. Now, how you do that, what kind of skills you go and, you do in this life, that's individualistic, but the goal is still the same, Krishna. That is the goal not only of this life, but of all lives in our existence in this material world, especially in being in a human form of life. We should come to know that. Vedanta Sutra confirms that this in the following words, Tatu Saman Vayat. One can attain perfection by understanding Vedic literature, and one can understand his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead by performing the different processes. This is about relationships, right? Our relationship with Krishna. Thus one can approach him and at the end attain the supreme goal, who is no other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this verse, however, the purpose of the Vedas, the understanding of the Vedas, and the goal of the Vedas are clearly defined. Text 16. Devabhina Purusha Loke Kashara Chakshara Evacha Kashara Savani Bhutani Kutashto Kashara Uchyate. Devao tu Imao in this world. Purusha living entities. Loke in this world, in the world. Kashara fallible. Cha and Akshara infallible. Eva certainly. Cha and Kashara, the fallible, Sarvani, all, Bhutani, living entities, Kutashtaha, in oneness, Akshara, infallible, Uchyate, is said. Translation, text 16. There are two classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every entity is called infallible. Very interesting. So in the conditioned state of life, in the material world, everybody is a fallible soldier, just as Bhaktivedanta Swami would say. We put our trust in so many fallible soldiers. These are the conditioned living entities, whether they be our wife, our husband, our parents, our children, people we work with, anybody we put trust in as leaders. The only infallible person is connected to the spiritual world, that is the devotee of Krishna, really. The true devotee of Krishna, because being connected to Krishna, they understand this relationship, the ultimate goal of our relationship. We try to have relationships with one another, and it's not to say that we shouldn't have relationships with, or have a husband or wife or our children, but we ultimately have to put Krishna as the center, because it's a relationship where we are connected to Krishna, and we are all connected to Krishna, and therefore we are connected with each other. And as Lord Jesus Christ said, you should love the Lord God your whole heart, whole mind, and whole being. First commandment. That's where our main relationship is. We understand that everything is related to Krishna, and therefore because we love Krishna and we put our trust in Krishna, we can love each other and understand that we are all children of Krishna. So this goes back to saying this idea of identity, that we've been talking about. People have so much striving to try to discover or, be proud of their identity, or, have some kind of relationship with their identity. I am black and I'm proud, or I am white power, or, transgenderism, or whatever it might be, whatever false identity. But these are all bodily designations, and they don't have to do with our true sense. As we've always said, that the true equality of mankind exists in the fact that we know that we have a common goal, and the common goal is the goal of the Vedas, to come to know Krishna, to come to love, to reinstate our loving relationship with Krishna. And therefore we have a relationship with each other according to that way. And that is the true equality, not these skin or mental designations of what we think we are and our identity and all these kinds of things that people are striving for, because none of that actually has any kind of real basis in reality. There is no peace, there is no happiness, and there cannot be peace without this true relationship of Krishna consciousness. And so, and it's said in the spiritual world, that's not a problem, because in the spiritual world, everybody is on board with Krishna. Everybody loves Krishna. Everybody is working towards serving Krishna. And therefore, it's already there. And this goes to say that, the perverted reflection of the banyan tree, where there's so many ways to try to engage in the false, infallible relationships, that there is no end in sight. It just goes down, down, down into the thickets of the banyan tree in the material world. As already explained, the Lord in his incarnation as Vyasadeva compiled the Vedanta Sutra. Here the Lord is giving in summary the contents of the Vedanta Sutra. He says that the living entities, who are innumerable, can be divided into two classes, the fallible and the infallible. The living entities are eternally separated parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When they are in contact with the material world, they are called Jiva Bhutaha. And the Sanskrit words given here, Sarvani Bhutani, mean that they are fallible. Those who are in oneness with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, are called infallible. And once again, this oneness is a oneness of will. It's a relationship. It's a loving relationship. So the fallible is where we think this is a relationship I'm having, but it's about me. And whatever I'm doing, even if it's in a relationship, I'm manipulating and trying to do things to try to get things for me, And it is true. Marriages are based on these all the time. Expectations, like, oh, she's going to satisfy A, B, C, D, E, and F for me, because I can tell that. And then, the person over there is saying, oh, yeah, I'll do that. But actually, that person is going to satisfy A, B, C, D, and E, and F for me. And then you're married a year, 6 months, a year, you start to get to know that actually the expectations are not the same, that really they want things for themselves. And that's just not how marriage works. It's not how true spiritual relationships work. So those who are in oneness with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, are called infallible. Oneness does not mean that they have no individuality, but that there is no disunity. So that's a very important point, because so many Christians get this idea wrong. and it's not a very logical one. When you are one in will, there is a oneness. There is an agreeing. There's no expectations of this and that. It's you guys are on the same page, right? And but that doesn't mean you become the person, right? So as Jesus Christ would say, I and my Father are one. Many Christians say, oh, he's saying he's the Father. No, he's saying that he has a loving relationship with Krishna that is connected, that he is on board with. He is living in his life according to. So if you love my Father, you know that I will have come from him. So it's like, once again, it's a relationship thing. It doesn't mean that somehow or another it's the same person. It's not. Oneness does, okay, they are all agreeable to the purpose of the creation. Of course, in the spiritual world, there is no such thing as creation, but since the Supreme Personality of Godhead has stated in the Vedanta Sutra that he is the source of all emanations, that conception is explained. According to the statement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, there are two classes of men. The Vedas give evidence of this, so there is no doubt about it. The living entities who are struggling in this world with the mind and five senses have their material bodies which are changing as long as the living entities are conditioned. One body changes due to contact with matter. Matter is changing, so the living entity appears to be changing. So we know this from science. Science shows that matter is in flux consistently. Water comes down the river, things move around, atoms change, things decompose, that those atoms come together and grow into another plant. Our bodies have 3 to 5 years before they're completely changed molecularly, all the way atomically down to everything. So that we go through life, maybe having 7, 8 bodies, different bodies. We can tell that by how our bodies progressed and evolved from smaller to bigger to older and older and older, right? It's not that materially those are the same things. They're not. And we can show this by science. We can show that the atoms are coming in, they're coming out. We have waste going out, we have new things coming in. Our body is consistently being constructed. This is because the Jivatma is present, making the consciousness appear, making the body move, the matter move around. So we don't really see that too much because we see things in the perception of time, but things are moving really. I mean, if we saw it very quickly, we could see how that evolves. Sometimes, now because of AI and YouTube videos and things like that, you can go on YouTube and you can see aging over 60 years, and you can see what happens, how the body changes a little bit better. But even on an atomic level, you don't really see that, but it is happening. But in the spiritual world, the body is not made of matter. Important point. Spiritual energy. Therefore, there is no change. In the material world, the living entity undergoes 6 changes: birth, growth, duration, reproduction, then dwindling and vanishing. These are the changes of the material body, but in the spiritual world, the body does not change. There is no old age, there is no birth, there is no death. There all exists in oneness. It is more clearly explained as Sarvani Bhutani, any living entity who has come in contact with matter, beginning with the first created being, Brahma, down to a small ant, is changing its body. Therefore, they are all fallible. In the spiritual world, however, they are always liberated in oneness. So the oneness is, once again, not, one indifferentiated energy that is God, right? Okay, like monists tend to think. The living entity is eternally existing. When it is in the material world, because matter is temporary, it is the matter that is changing, not the living entity that is changing. The living entity is stationary. It stays the same. So that's the difference. We're thinking, I'm getting old. It's not really I'm getting old. It's my body that's getting old. The living entity now doesn't age. Text 17. Uttama Purushastavanya Paramatmeti udarata Yoloka trayam ashvishya Bibharti avyaya ishvaraha Utamaha, the best, Purusha, personality, two, but, Anya, another, Param, the supreme, Atma, self, Iti, thus, Udarata, said, Ya, one who, Loka, of the universe, Trayam, the three divisions, Ashvisha, entering, Bibharti, maintaining, Avyaya, inexhaustible, Ishvara, the Lord. Besides these two, there is the greatest living personality, the Lord himself, who has entered into these worlds and is maintaining them. This verse is very nicely expressed in the Katha Upanishad and the Svetasvatara Upanishad. It is clearly stated there that above the innumerable living entities, some of whom are conditioned and some of whom are liberated, there is the Supreme Personality who is Paramama. The Upanishadic verse runs as follows, Nicho Nichanam Chetanash Chetanam. The purport is that amongst all the living entities, both conditioned and liberated, there is one supreme living personality, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who maintains them and gives them all the facility of enjoyment according to different work. It's kind of like God is great, God is the greatest. That Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. A wise man who can understand him is eligible to attain the perfect peace, not others. It is incorrect to think. So this, once again, the perfect peace. A wise man who understands Krishna and that the goal of life, the goal of the Vedas, is to understand Krishna, can actually have perfect peace by applying such things. People who have to have relationships, trying to seek out the peace, the perfect peace, by having relationship with fallible living entities who are fallible because they are conditioned, will never find peace. And that's why it says, without peace, how can there be any happiness? How can there be any happiness without peace? There's not. So therefore no one's really happy, but they're seeking peace, they're seeking happiness. But they are looking in the wrong place, looking for love in all the wrong places, as it was said. The song sings, it is incorrect to think of the Supreme Lord and the living entities as being on the same level or equal in all respects. There is always the question of superiority and inferiority in their personalities. The particular word Uttama, like Uttama Adhikari, Uttama means ultimate, is very significant. No one can surpass the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Loke is also significant because in the Parusha of Vedic literature, it is stated Lokyate Vedarto Nena. This Supreme Lord in his localized aspect as Paramama explains the purpose of the Vedas. The following verse also appears in the Vedas. Here we go. Tavadesha samprashado smak charirat samutaya param choiti rupam sampadaya svena rupen nabinish padyate sautama purusha. The Supersoul, coming out of the body, enters the impersonal Brahmajyoti. Then in his form he remains in its spiritual identity. That Supreme is called the Supreme Personality. This means that the Supreme Personality is exhibiting and diffusing his spiritual effulgence, which is the ultimate illumination. That Supreme Personality also has a localized aspect as Paramama. By incarnating himself as the son of Satyavati and Parashara, he explains the Vedic knowledge as Vyasadeva. Text 18. Yashmat Kasharam Atitoam Aksararapi Chotama Atosmi Loke Vedecha Pratitaha Purushatamaha Yashmat, because Kasharam, the fallible, Atita, transcendental, Aham, I, Akshara, from the infallible. Api, better than that. Cha, end. Uttama, the best. Ata, therefore. Ashmi, I am. Loke, in the world. Veda, Vede, in the Vedic literatures. Cha, end. Pratita, celebrated. Purushottama, as the Supreme Personality. Translation, text 18. Because I am transcendental beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that Supreme Person. Once again, a pretty self-explained verse that cites that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transcendental beyond not only the material world and the conditioned world, the matter, but also in the spiritual world. He is transcendental, and above that, he is the source of all. He's Uttamaha, the ultimate. Nicho Nichanam Chaitana Chaitanam. No one can surpass the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, neither the conditioned soul nor the liberated soul. He is therefore the greatest of personalities. Now it is clear, that's why he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now it is clear here that the living entities in the Supreme Personality of Godhead are individuals. The difference is that the living entities, either in the conditioned state or in the liberated state, cannot surpass the quantity, the inconceivable potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, Achinta Beda Beda Tapas, simultaneously one but different. So simultaneously, both the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are spiritual in essence, but they are the same in quality but not in quantity. We cannot become Krishna. That's what's being stated here. Text 19. Yomam evam ashmad ashamujo jananti purushatam mamam. Tamam. Sarva vid bhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. Yada, anyone, mam, unto me, evam, certainly, ashamudyaha, without a doubt, janati, knows, Purushottama, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sa, he, sarvavit, knower of everything, bhajati, renders devotional service. Right, there's our bhajam, worship word again. It has to do with devotional service. Mam, unto me, sarva bhavena, in all respects, bharata, O son of Bharat. Text 19 translation. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is to be understood as the knower of everything, and he therefore engages himself in full devotional service, O son of Bharat. Purport. There are many philosophical speculations about the constitutional position of the living entities and the Supreme Absolute Truth. Now in this verse, the Supreme Personality of Godhead clearly explains that anyone who knows Lord Krishna as a Supreme Person is actually the knower of everything. The imperfect knower goes on simply speculating about the absolute truth, but the perfect knower, without wasting his valuable time, engages directly in Krishna consciousness, the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. So once again, so many things have been discussed about, and people can speculate about so many things. They can follow different yogic paths and whatnot, different ways of Jnana Yogi and whatever. They can kind of make the sideway trip to Krishna, but the true knower engages directly in the service of Krishna, in devotional service, in bhakti yoga. Therefore, the whole of Bhagavad Gita, this fact is being stressed at every step. And still there are so many stubborn commentators on Bhagavad Gita who consider the Supreme Absolute Truth and the living entities to be one and the same. Yeah, it's so clear. Bhaktivedanta makes it very, very clear. But he's also saying that even despite this, they're like, oh, no, because they're envious of Krishna and they want to basically be Lord and Master, even as a so-called spiritual master, to teach monism. Vedic knowledge is called Shruti, learning by oral reception. One should actually receive the Vedic message from authorities like Krishna and his representatives. So you should hear from the spiritual master firsthand. Here, Krishna distinguishes everything very nicely, and one should hear from this source. Simply to hear like the hogs is not sufficient. One should be able to understand from the authorities. It's funny because whether this is true or not, I don't know. But I think it is true because I heard it from a disciple who said that when John Lennon and Yoko Ono were with the Beatles and George Harrison, they would come around and chant with Bhaktivedanta because they had been previously to Maharishi, and Maharishi had proven to be a scoundrel, and so they all gave up on Maharishi, so they started chanting with Bhaktivedanta. And John Lennon was married to Yoko Ono at that time, and Yoko Ono, of course, those two are full of false ego, so they think they know better. They don't realize who they're talking to, and so they wanted to get a private audience with Bhaktivedanta Swami. And so he said, well, my disciples are as good as me. You can say when you ask your question right here. And they were really pushy, and so Bhaktivedanta sent his disciples out there. But apparently one of the disciples was listening in on the conversation, and they were, trying to, look for a higher truth than what Bhaktivedanta was, a higher truth, right? And they kept pushing, and Bhaktivedanta said, well, surely there's more that you can do than just chanting, that you would receive more information or something to that matter. And Bhaktivedanta was like, no, all you have to do is, this chant Krishna's names. And they kept pushing and Bhaktivedanta got really angry. He said, you shouldn't give pearls to swine. Basically calling them pigs. So same kind of thing. To hear like hogs is not sufficient, right? Because hogs are not going to be like, oh, they're just like. One must be able to understand from authorities. It is not simply one should simply speculate academically. One should submissively hear from Bhagavad Gita that these living entities are always subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who is able to understand this according to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, knows the purpose of the Vedas. No one else knows the purpose of the Vedas. The word, even the Vedanta impersonalists, they definitely don't know what the Vedas are about, as they keep coming to the wrong conclusions. The word bhajate is very significant. In many places, the word bhajate is expressed in relationship with the service of the Supreme Lord. That is so amazing, right? Rendering devotional service, but it's about relationship. And, my spiritual master has been making so many lectures that I've heard recently that talks about the real meaning of yoga is about relationship with Krishna. If a person is engaged in full Krishna consciousness and devotional service of the Lord, it is to be understood that he has understood all the Vedic knowledge. In the Vaishnava Parampara, it is said that if one is engaged in the devotional service of Krishna, then there is no need for a spiritual process to understand the supreme absolute truth. He has already come to the post because he is engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. He has ended all preliminary processes of understanding. Similarly, if anyone, after speculating for hundreds of thousands of lives, does not come to the point that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that one has to surrender there, all his speculations for so many years in lives is a useless waste of time. Wow. Yeah, total waste of time when it's like sitting armchair philosophers just speculating, going around mentally masturbating with each other. It's just like I gotta say a lot about that because I know I was there. Text 20. Iti guyat mam shastram idam uktam maya naga etad budva buddhi mam shyayat krita kritya chabalat iti thus guyat mam. The most confidential shastram revealed scriptures, idam, this, uktam, disclosed, maya, by me, ananga, O sinless one, etat, this, buddha, understanding, buddhimam, intelligent, shayat, one becomes, krita kritya, the most perfect, cha, and bharata, O son of Bharat. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. Beautiful verse. I'm going to read that again. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. Purport. The Lord clearly explains here that this is the substance of all revealed scriptures, and one should understand this as it is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus one will become intelligent and perfect in transcendental knowledge. In other words, by understanding this philosophy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engaging in his transcendental service, everyone can become freed from all contamination of the modes of material nature. Devotional service is a process of spiritual understanding. Wherever devotional service exists, the material contamination cannot coexist. Devotional service to the Lord and the Lord himself are one and the same because they are spiritual, the internal energy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord is said to be the sun, and ignorance is called darkness. Where the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Therefore, whenever devotional service is present under the proper guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, there is no question of ignorance. Beautiful. Everyone must take to this consciousness of Krishna and engage in devotional service to become intelligent and purified. So one should be intelligent and purified. That's the way the people should live, not stupid and contaminated. One comes to this position of understanding Krishna and engages in devotional service. However intelligent he may be in the estimation of some common man, he is not perfectly intelligent. The word ananga, by which Arjuna is addressed, is significant. Ananga, O sinless one, means that unless one is free from all sinful reaction, it is very difficult to understand Krishna. One has to become free from all contamination, all sinful activities, then he can understand. But devotional service is so pure and potent that once one is engaged in devotional service, he automatically comes to the stage of sinlessness. So even chanting, like we were saying, is like the sunlight on most impure things. One can be extremely sinful, most fallen, and because of the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who came to save the most fallen, which was all of us in this Kali Yuga, Americans, and we're not very good yogis or anything like that, but we chant Krishna's names and we can become sinless. While performing devotional service in the association of pure devotees in full Krishna consciousness, there are certain things which require to be vanquished altogether. The most important thing one has to surmount is weakness of the heart. Wow. The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature. Thus, one gives up the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord. The second weakness of the heart is that one increases the propensity of lording it over material nature. He becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter. The problem of material existence are due to these weaknesses of the heart. Well, there's a lot to be said with that one. We'll save that for another time. Weaknesses of the heart. Yeah. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 15th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of Purushottam Yoga, the yoga of the Supreme Person. Wow. Always awesome. Just amazing. and we will continue to read through. We got 3 more chapters, chapter 16 through 18, and the next chapter is entitled The Divine and Demoniac Natures, and we will get into that next time. So until then, have a good night, and why don't we chant a little bit. Haribol, thank you very much. Namaste.